Hi and welcome to my channel, especially if you are newly subscribed. My name's Ian and I am the copper.gravity rolling ball sculpture YouTube channel that you've always dreamed of. I make these things that rolling balls work really well. You get the balls to the top somehow and the balls roll down the copper tracks that I make and design, and they do certain nice things on the way. And when they get to the bottom, they need lifting up again to the top. I'm currently building one which is going to be inside this cabinet here, and to help me do that I have started a prototype which I'm currently in the process of taking apart. So the way I'm getting the balls up to the top on this one is I'm using a bearing, and the bearing will push the balls up this copper track, and the bearing needs to be turned using an electric motor. Now in this episode I'm going to go through just how I'm going to wire up the motor with some switches, and there's also a little light. So let's call this episode the electrical one. Every electrical project starts with a bunch of sketches, and I did 2 or maybe 3 of these before I finally settled on doing a proper electrical diagram. On the left here you can see where the power comes in, and I've got a master switch on the in line of the 220 volts system, so that can kill the power to the whole of the sculpture. I'm then using 2 nice little brass toggle switches independently from each other. One will go to the motor and one will go to the lamp. Now the motor is a 220 volt AC synchronous system. It did come with quite short wires, so I've lengthened all of those, and there is a capacitor attached to the motor, and that is really important because that decides the motor direction when the motor is switched on. If you don't have the capacitor, then the motor will kind of flip-flop between going clockwise and anti-clockwise, and if you have the capacitor wired up one way it will only go clockwise, and if you have it the other way it will only go anti-clockwise. Now I worked out which way I wanted it to go because it's really important for this sculpture that it always and only goes the same way, and I actually broke the capacitor that came with it, so I've bought a replacement, and that's going to be fitted underneath, out of the way, but still doing the same job. The black wires from the motor are the return 0 volts, and that goes back to the original power supply. Then I've got the second toggle switch. This one is for the lamp, and the lamp I'm using is a 12 volt DC system, so mounted underneath the sculpture I've got this lovely slimline transformer. I've already ran the 12 volt wires through the inside of the cabinet, and that goes up to the lamp that's already mounted on the underside of the inside of the top of the cabinet. The lamp has got a built-in switch which annoyingly always needed to be pressed if you killed the whole power, so I've taken that apart and disabled it, which means that that switch is always on. Then there's another 0 volt return wire that's required to go back to the original power supply. Now to make everything safe, I'll follow good practices and nice safe international standards. I'm going to use these electrical connector blocks to run all my wires through and do all my connections, and the whole thing will be fully enclosed in this protected project box, and that's going to be mounted underneath the sculpture at the back, nice and slim, nice and out the way. The switches that I've got for the motor and the lamp will be mounted somehow, probably in a little box of some sort on the right hand side on the outside of the sculpture, to allow the user to either operate with just the motor or just the light. So looking back at the wiring diagram, you can see it's kind of hopefully really understandable, nice and easy, and that's what I've got to do. Right, the first thing I've done is to make these 3 little loops. This will be for the 220 here. So the 220 will come into this one and be supplied to this one, this one and this one. This will go off to the lights, this will go off to the motor, and this will have the capacitor. And what I've done now is I've now got the 0 volts, all 3 connected here. So the 0 will come in here, one will go off to the motor, one will go off to the lamp, and I fitted the capacitor in here. And this one here will have the blue wire that goes off to the motor on there. Right, what's next? Okay, I've put the connectors now into the enclosure box, and wired in the 240 power that comes in. So this will be the positive, the brown wire in the UK is 240 in, so that now means that this one, all down here will be live. And the 0 volts in the UK is blue, that's the neutral wire, so that comes into here, and these black jumpers mean 0, 0, 0. So there, so that's ready for motor, light, motor, light. It's time for the switches. Now my original plan for the switches was to mount them inside of this little box and mount this here, so the switches would be stuck out the front. And then I thought of doing it like this, and then I thought of putting this on the inside because obviously I could do that, but I don't quite like the idea of having it on the inside. I quite like them having them externally. So what I've got is a bit of copper plate left over from an old job. If I screw that to the outside here, then I can mount the switches on the front like that and have all the wires at the back going down and underneath them nicely tucked away out the side. Obviously I like copper plate, and there's likely to be a bit of copper plate on the sculpture itself, so it will work together. And if I do that now, if I wire that up and put the wires into the motor and to the light switch, then I can run the wires all the way down and under and start to kind of put them all in the right place, and then forget about the electrics, which means I can do the next thing after that. So let me build the switches. Well, a lot of fettling later, and I've got something that's okay. I mean, the material's probably a bit thin, so I'm going to go for it for now, but it does look a bit cheap and wobbly. I probably need to buy myself a slightly thicker piece of copper that's a little bit wider, and I'll make it a really nice shape, and I'll do some better drilling. But for now, I am going to go for it. I'm going to put it on, because sometimes if it's worth doing twice. So I'm going to put it on and mount it on here. Then if I do buy another bit of copper, all I've got to do is use the same mounting system. So don't be surprised if this looks a lot better in future videos. But for now, yeah, I'm going to go with what I've done. So there's the wires, got all those on. They're just the kind of placeholder wires at the moment, just they're long and the right size. So I'm just looking now to see where exactly I can get this in and where is the best place to drill. So there's a couple of insert nuts now drilled into the cabinet and some M4 rod coming up and some dome nuts on the top. So that's now secured into the cabinet, and the switches are in there kind of just a bit loose at the moment, but that's how they are. So on and off, that will be for the motor because obviously it's lower down, and the lights will be up there. It's not the best thing I've done. I will get a thicker piece of copper and shape it much more nicely, but at least I know I've got the exact sizes of where to drill and what to do. So this is in a way my template for the switch plate that I don't yet own. So next thing will be to put these wires into the right place under there. I made a little label just to remind myself of what everything is, but now I've got the 220 volts and the 0 volt return coming in, and everything I can do at the moment is all linked up. So I've got the lamp positive that goes off to the switch and back into the lamp, and then 0 volt return going back here. and I can prove that works. First of all, if I put on the switch down here, that means that this is now live, and if I operate this one up here, then the lamp works. So that's all that. And the motor I can't yet do because the motor isn't in the right place, and until the motor's in the right place I can't drill the hole through, but it's going to be about here where the 3 wires for the motor will come back. The red positive will go off and into this block, which is the switched in. The black will go off to the neutral, and there's a blue wire that will come back in and go off to this side here in the capacitor. So until that's done, until the motor's in and the hole's drilled, I can't really do any more wiring, but it is all done and ready to go. So in order to make it safe, all I've got to do is to screw this block on here and tighten up all the cable ties. Make sure I don't drill through from underneath. Tidy all this up, but that will be done when I replace that copper wire. So for the moment, that's it on the wiring. So thanks very much for watching. I'm going to end the video here. See you on the next one, where I will get the bearing in place. I've already started to do a little bit of the woodwork. This is the horizontal piece kind of the T that will hold up the bearing. It obviously needs shaping and staining. I'm just kind of bought a little bit of stain to make it look the same as this, so I'm just getting the stain right on a bit of practice. And so next episode, I know I keep saying it, but next episode I will put the bearing in the thing and we'll watch the thing do the thing. And until then, have a lovely week or so, and see you very soon. Bye.